Well, for more, Justin Byworth is the World Vision representative to the European Union. He joins us now live from Brussels. Justin, thank you for being with us. How many of these victims are actually receiving treatment right now, especially when you look at the medical infrastructure in those rebel-held areas in Syria? They've been targeted by the Assad regime.
Well, yeah, I mean, this tragic attack is horrific attack is just another tragic example of too many times that children, innocent civilians, and especially children who World Vision is concerned with, have suffered greatly. I was in the room, and there's been a two-day conference on Syria with a lot of leaders and humanitarian organisations here in Brussels, and I was in the room when when the news broke, and when news also of the attacks on the very hospitals that were treating the victims. Tragically, every week, on average, once a week, a school has been bombed and targeted in Syria, and that's just one of the examples of what's probably been the worst year of the conflict as we enter the seventh year, the worst year for children, and the effects of violence on them.
You know, we found out some of the details of how all this played out. First came the gas, and then when the aid workers, the medical teams arrived, there were at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 other airstrikes specifically targeting those who were trying to help the people who'd been affected by what may have been sarin gas. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
I mean, tragically, World Vision has been working with over 1 million children, over 2 million people in and around Syria in response to this, providing humanitarian assistance. And I met, back in the first large attack, I met a family that had fled from a chemical weapon attack, from a sarin attack, in fact, in Damascus back in 2013. And a girl who was just 8 at the time, Tasneem, I'll never forget her face, I'll never forget her name, told me what it was like. She told me how her brothers had realised it was a gas attack, and so had taken her up onto the top of the roof of their block where they were living, rather than down to the bomb shelters where many people had gone. And many people had died because the gas was heavier than the air, and they put a towel over her mouth with Coca-Cola on it to stop her. And you could see, obviously, the tragic loss that she'd suffered from friends and family, but also, that these things, they live with people like Tasneem and like many other children that World Vision's working with. They live with them for their lives ahead, and so the damage is not just physical but emotional, psychological. It's hard to describe, and even just encountering it is hard to encounter.
A lot of the victims here are children. So if they do manage to survive in the short to mid-term, I mean, what's their long-term prognosis here? What's the long-term effects of this?
Well, we are looking at a generational impact in Syria. I mean, from the things we just mentioned about the seeing and receiving impacts of violence. As I say, 1 school a week bombed in the last year, but also we've seen the greatest number in the last year of violations of children's rights and violence. We've seen 90% of areas in Syria actually recruiting children into armed groups. We've seen a rise of child marriage, to where people try to, they think it's safer for girls to get married young. We've seen a rise in child labour, sometimes dangerous child labour. So all of these are just examples of the kind of impacts. But we are, obviously, there's 2.5 million Syrian children out of school, and hundreds of thousands that have been born as refugees outside of Syria. So while World Vision and other humanitarian agencies try to bring immediate assistance, we're also wanting to make sure kids are back in school, that kids are protected, providing safe places for some kind of normality to play, to learn. And that's good, but ultimately, of course, we need a political solution. We need peace.
We're now into year 7, and political solution and peace just does not look on the horizon. Justin, thanks so much for being with us. Justin Byworth with World Vision.